What's going on, lads and lassies? It's Ocean from the South Stand back again with another video. And I've got to say, I was absolutely gutted not to be able to film this one as soon as I possibly could this weekend. Normally, I try and get them filmed on the Sunday or the Monday, depending on when we played. It just didn't happen this weekend, just because I didn't have all the equipment that I needed. So, we are going to be talking about the Chelsea game and previewing the Everton game in this episode. Also, in case you haven't noticed, I'm just holding my mic like this because for some reason the stand doesn't want to hold up the mic right now. So if this does impact the audio at all, then I apologise, but it should be fine. I'll try and keep still, even though I am very, very excited to talk about that Chelsea victory. Well, the Sunderland victory at Stamford Bridge. So let's just jump right into things. And before we do, folks, if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe, like the video, comment down below and get involved in the conversation and trying to build a Sunderland community across the course of this season. And if you haven't already, please check out the southstandclothing.com for any sort of Sunderland fan wear, merch, hats, t-shirts, all the good stuff. The southstandclothing.com, and we'll get right into this. So yeah, as I said, I wasn't able to film this one straight away, especially compared to how quick I'd like to film this one. And of all the weekends for this to happen, it just had to be the weekend that we go and beat Chelsea 2-1 at Stamford Bridge. And I've got to say, I did have a good feeling going into this game this weekend. If you watch the preview show, you'll see that I predicted a hopeful 1-1. If I'm honest, I had to kind of temper what I actually thought just because I couldn't be asked getting the piss taken out of me if we eventually got beat. But there was something about this game, and there was something about this game feeling like if we're going to beat any of the big teams, it's going to be this Chelsea team this weekend. So let's just jump right into how it all played out. As we all know by now, Regis headed into this one with a back five, and I think it was the first time we've actually seen us line up on paper in a back five for the first time this season. Of course, throughout the season, we've used back fives in phases of play, but it's never been something that we've actually started with. And I think given the selection and the selection headaches we had in terms of building out our back line and then also just trying to compete with Chelsea's quality in the final third, because although it wasn't on show today or it wasn't on show on Saturday to the full extent, they've obviously got heaps and heaps of talent throughout that squad. So I think the back five was absolutely a job well done by Regis. And where I'd predicted Tiertrauder would be starting in the middle in a back four, he would be starting in the midfield to then be able to drop into a back five. Instead, I actually played kind of in the opposite way, where he started in the back line and throughout the game, periodically, we'd see Trey Hume step into midfield instead. We'd see Nordy do what Nordy does and go gallivanting across the whole field. We've seen Hirtrauda step forward as well. So it wasn't limiting us just to being Hirtrauda stepping back in. The way we just set up actually offered us a lot more options going forward. So it definitely wasn't a defensive back five by any means, although if you look at the stats from this game, you'll see that Chelsea heavily outweighed us in terms of possession. But truthfully, there's just nothing they could do with the ball. I think Sunderland came into this one with the game plan spot on, and we spoke about this in the preview show for the Chelsea game. If you can eliminate Chelsea's middle of the park, you can win that game. The likes of Caicedo are the main points for Chelsea, and we've seen it when Esteval came on later on in the game. As a winger, he's got a little bit more to them, but if you see the likes of Neto and Garnacho starting on the Chelsea wing, force them out wide and make them do something with it, because I think it showed in this game how Chelsea really did start to run out of ideas and how to break Sunderland down. But we'll start from the beginning. Of course, we set up in the back five, and from the start, it was pretty clear that Sunderland weren't just going to sit back and let Chelsea come at them. We came out the gates with a hell of a lot of intensity, got right up in their faces, and really the first goal that came for Chelsea came off the back of a counter-attack because Sunderland were pushing so far forward. When that goal went in 4 minutes in, I've got to say I was gutted because it felt like the kind of day where we could take something from the game, and going down 1-0 so quickly, like 3, 4, 5 minutes in, whenever it was, did kind of stutter us a little bit, but it wasn't long before Sunderland were able to equalise things through Wilson Isidore, and as per usual, it's coming off the back of a long throw. There's been so much media coverage on set pieces and long throws and all that this year, and honestly, I just think it's because the big boys are getting done by them. Obviously, unless you're Arsenal, then you're the catalyst for all this. But we see it from Chelsea. We've seen Enzo Maresco talk before about not really caring about long throws just to get undone by them. And I think you don't really have that privilege in the Premier League these days. I find it kind of ridiculous how we get the media and the top teams trying to tell other teams how they're allowed to beat them. like Arne Slot spoke about, like even Enzo Maresca spoke about in the post-match interview for this game. He's like, I watched all 9 games and Sunderland never started with a back five. I don't know. Is it just Sunderland fans that felt like this was pretty obvious and pretty imminent happening this weekend? Because if he'd really studied Sunderland, then I think he would see that that was definitely an option. It's an option that we use anyway throughout phases of play. So as I say, we get up there, Noddy chucks in a long throw, the ball scrambles around the box a little bit before Bertrand Traore has a shot at goal, ping pongs around a little bit more, falls down to Wilson's feet, and he puts it in the back of the net, easy as you like, one each. And from then on, I honestly felt like Sunderland were going to get something from this game. If we were just able to equalise fairly quickly, then it was ours to go and play for, and that's exactly what happened. This game, just like every other game in the Premier League so far for Sunderland, just showed off the sheer quality of, first of all, Regis's tactical ability in terms of completely shutting down Caicedo through having Wilson man mark him, and then when Sunderland were playing further forward, it was like Granit Xhaka man marking him. But not only does it show the likes of Regis Lebrice's tactical nous and capabilities, I just honestly, every single week that goes by, I get more and more and more impressed by these Sunderland defenders, because they're not just defenders, they're not traditional defenders. Every one of them is comfortable stepping out from the back line with the ball at their feet, whether they be the fullbacks who make an immense difference going forward on the wings, or in Trey Hume's instance, being able to cut inside. I don't want to say this as any direct comparison, but Trey Hume and the way Trey plays really honestly starting to grow into, for me, something like Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of his ball playing ability. I think he's so good with the ball at his feet. And then to have not one, not two, but three centre halves in Mukiele Alderete and Dan Ballard, who are all able to step out from that back line so comfortably with the ball at their feet, be able to progress Sunderland up the backfield like that. I don't know a promoted side that can rely on the defenders so much, and they're not old defenders by any means. Like the likes of Trey Hume and Dan Ballard are in their early 20s. I think Omar Alderete's 27, same as Mukiele, probably 28, so peak prime years for them being defenders. And they just make such an immense difference getting Sunderland up the field. We've seen it in the first half where Dan Ballard plays a 1-2 with Granit Xhaka in the middle of the park, round Caicedo, to then go up. And it was Dan Ballard who plays a beautiful outside of the boot pass over to Traore, who then fluffs the shot. Like, the fact that we've got central defenders who are able to do this and do it so confidently so soon into the Premier League, I honestly just cannot speak about them enough. I think they're absolutely immense. And then, do we need to check in on Granit Xhaka every week? Do we need to comment every single week how unbelievable this guy is for Sunderland? I think, honestly, if you just put the TV on mute, you can see it, and you can see that Granit Xhaka just speaks the whole time. I'd love to see him in like a COVID setting where they were playing with no fans in the park, and the same with Jordan Henderson. You heard him shout the whole game. I honestly believe that if you said that with Granit Xhaka, it would be exactly the same. Like, that guy is just constantly telling everyone, here, there, you do this, you do that. It's unbelievable, and it makes such a difference to Sunderland being able to manage the game. And as I spoke about with the likes of Trey Hume being able to step into midfield, honestly, that was one of my main worries with a back five, is that we'd get run over in terms of numbers in central midfield, especially when you've got the likes of Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez who have such quality. I was worried about not being able to keep up with him for the entire time just because they would have an extra man. It just never became a problem because the likes of Trey Hume stepping into midfield and being able to offer that extra defence. And honestly, just before we go any further in this video, we just need to talk about it. Noah Siddiqui, but honestly, drug test that man, because he's everywhere. How can he be so many places at the same time? I don't get it. The guy's just absolutely everywhere. And to be 20 years old but have that head on his shoulders, he comes across so mature in the decision making, his ability to track back, like everything about him. To think the fact that he has Granit Xhaka alongside him, Noah Siddiqui in 2-3 years, I don't even want to think about how much of an absolute beast in the middle of the park he would be, because he's been unbelievable so far. And to add that maturity and experience of playing alongside someone like Granit Xhaka, he is only ever going to get better. And yeah, I feel like I'm not commenting on too much of the bad stuff just now. And it's the same anytime Sunderland win. I find it hard to talk about the bads because, especially in that game, there wasn't really. I mean, it's kind of the same story as what we've had throughout the season for Sunderland. We let go of the ball a little bit easy sometimes. Sometimes our passes aren't that accurate. that honestly is the only things I've got to comment on for that whole 90 plus minutes, because Sunderland, everything they could do right, everything that they could do to make an impact in this game, they did it and they won it. So I really honestly, I don't have too much to say in that aspect. I mean, the second half we sat back and soaked up a hell of a lot of pressure, but is that a negative when it comes to Sunderland anymore? Because we're so used to doing it at this point, and it's become such a massive part of Sunderland's game plan that I'm not sure any time that we sit off the ball and just soak up pressure that it's necessarily an inability to go and change that. I think it's more of a, don't know, a tactical choice in a way, because we've seen Regis do it now. The end of the championship, through massive games in the playoff, through big games in the Premier League, we've seen him set up his teams with the confidence and assurance that they can keep the ball at the back of the net without the ball. So yeah, even then, like the fact that we sat off the ball so much in the second half, I don't think it makes a difference, because I just think it's all part of Regis's plan. So yeah, honestly, a fantastic win against Chelsea at the weekend. I'd love to sit and talk about it more, talk about it in more detail, but as we know, in this video, it's going to be this video is going to be a little bit of a double episode in which we talk about the Chelsea game just gone past, and then the Everton game that we have coming up on our first edition of Monday Night Football in Sunderland's season so far. So I actually watched the Everton game on Monday night against. Was that Monday night or was that Sunday? No, I think it was Sunday. The Everton game against Spurs. I will just say here, they let me down for 3 grand. So not for a grand and a half, sorry, which was so painful. All I was waiting on in that Everton game was Jordan Pickford making 2 saves. He made a singular save the whole game and got 3 put past him. So currently, me and Jordan Pickford are on bad terms. He doesn't know that, but I've got major beef with him after last week, because see, when you're sitting there and they're offering you a cash out of 900, you're like that. Nah, I'll just wait. I'll just wait. It's 2 saves from Jordan Pickford, a man that makes 3 or 4 saves every game. Oh, for sure, man. I can't even deal with that, man. It's so painful. But yeah, getting back to the Everton game. Look, we've seen it on Monday, Everton on Sunday. Honestly, I don't know. We've seen it at the Howe Dickinson Stadium against Spurs. The Everton are able to get up and around your box, but against Spurs, we're just absolutely unable to do anything with it. They had a few like kind of half chances, a few half decent chances, but in terms of the game against Spurs, it just never ever looked like Everton were actually going to score a goal. And that's kind of painful, because you see the scoreline of 3-0 to Spurs, and that honestly is a little bit flattering. I think Everton held a hell of a lot of the ball, but there's no point in having the ball if you're not going to do too much with it. And I think what we've seen at the start of the season with Everton, first of all, their 3 kind of forward line players, or midfield and forward line players, of Jack Grealish, Iliman Ndiaye and Dewsbury Hall, all of them absolutely fantastic and a joy to watch, to be honest. I really like Iliman Ndiaye. I think a lot of the plaudits goes to Grealish, and rightfully so. I think he's having an excellent season for Everton. But I think Ndiaye is just magic. Like, the way all 3 of them are dynamic, they work well together. They just really bring a lot of quality to this Everton side. But if you're able to shut them down and able to limit their chances, there's not much else Everton can do, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's just a me thing. I will say, if there's any Everton fans watching this, which I doubt there is, I've only watched about 3 or 4 of Everton's games this season. It just so happens to be that for me, that's been the story so far. I think their best game, realistically, was probably against Palace, but even then it did take until the last minute to get that goal over the line for Jack Grealish. So yeah, when it comes to Everton, I think a lot of the times, if you're able to limit their wider players in Grealish and Iliman Ndiaye, you're able to snuff out a lot of the things Everton can do. And as we've seen through the game at Chelsea at the weekend, I think that's something Sunderland will be happy to play. Push them out wide, usher them to the side, and then let them swing in the balls as often as they like, because Sunderland have confidence that from crosses and set pieces that they can defend well. And furthermore, when you look at this Everton team, for all the magic they've got in those wide areas and in the number 10 role with Dewsbury Hall, they're just lacking a real threat on goal. For all the chances they're making, Beto or Barry, whichever one that starts at the weekend, for all the chances they're making them, they're unable to convert them. So I don't know. For me, I don't want to come into this far too cocky or anything, but after having watching Sunderland at the weekend and watched Everton in their away games, I just, yeah, for me, I see this one being a Sunderland win. I'm not going to lie. I think we'll come into this one and the Everton starting lineup will be much the same as we've seen so far. So Pickford at the back, from left to right, Mikolenko, Keane, Tarkowski and O'Brien. then Garner and Gay in the middle. Garner had a real chance at the weekend. He had a cracking shot, just didn't turn into a goal. But again, a decent central midfielder. But I do believe that we can have the better of them in the middle of the park. And then you've got Njai, Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, and then we're going to assume that it's Beto starting. That's who started last week for them. Honestly, it doesn't really make a difference between Beto and Barry. They're both unable to convert at this point in time anyway. And then from a Sunderland point of view, I think we've got a lot to discuss in terms of this back line and how we're going to set it up. I think the back five was great for the Chelsea game, but I do not see us playing a back five at home against Everton. I just don't see it happening. I think Regis Lebris will 9 times out of 10 always pick a back four where he can. And really, it was just the quality that we're coming up in against it, Chelsea away from home that forced him into a back five, as well as the selection headaches we had with Alderete being missing. But coming back into this weekend, I think Alderete should be back in action. And then for me, it causes a real problem in terms of who we pick at this back four. For all the amazing job that Ronaldo done at the weekend against Chelsea, I am going to first of all assume that Regis is going to pick a back four because that's just what he's done at home against like competitive opposition. I'm not painting out Everton to be some walk in the park, but I think it's a game that Sunderland can go and compete in for sure. And for me, I think we're going to see Ronaldo be dropped. I think we're going to see Ronaldo be dropped, and I'd like to see what anyone else thinks of this one. But assuming that Alderete is coming back into this backline, I think Regis will go for what we've seen the week before last, in that McKelly will be in his favoured right back position with a centre half pairing of Ballard and Alderete, followed up by Trey Hume at left back. I don't know for sure. This is going to be the way it settles. I think we've now got a real job in our hands because when all five of these lads are fit, it's really hard not to just play all of them. Really hard not to play all of them because they all offer so much going forward as well. But I think if he sticks to a back four, I do think he's probably going to drop Ronaldo just because Hume's played the rest of the season. Honestly, it's so hard to call what this Sunderland back line is going to be. But I'm going to assume that we are sticking with a back four and going for the 4-3-3 that we've known for the most part with Regis. I'm going to really realistically put out much the same team that we've seen against Wolves at home. With the backline that I spoke about before, followed up by Xhaka, Siddiqui and Chris Rigg in the midfield, then with Traore, Isidore and Enzo Lefebvre in the front three. That, I think, did really more than enough against Wales, and I do think that they could compete well with Everton as well in this instance. It's a shame for someone like Geertruida, who I think will probably be dropped coming back into the starting lineup for this one, or I should say should be put on the bench coming into this one. I think Chris Rigg does offer you a little bit more going forward, and I think if Chris Rigg's going to get any minutes this season, it's going to be when we're playing at the Stadium of Light against, as I say, teams that we can compete with fairly well. I think this will be the time where he brings Chris Rigg in because we know that Regis isn't afraid to make substitutions anyway. So should this starting lineup not be working, I think he'd be more than happy just to swap it out, bring in Lucia and see where we go. But yeah, in terms of how I've seen this one playing out, I think Sunderland will force Everton to play to the outside to both Grealish and Njai, and then from there double up and make them ineffective. We've seen it at the weekend where maybe we don't even have to double up as much in terms of playing against Everton, but when it came to Garnacho and to Neto and as to Esteval as the game went on, once Sunderland conceded that first goal, they made no mistake in just sending out an extra man to go and help. And I think that playing in the back five afforded that because we still had enough people in the back line. I'll be intrigued to see how they then tailor this kind of help when it comes to a back four. But for me, if you're able, as I said, to limit the effectiveness of Njai, to limit the effectiveness of Grealish, then you're halfway there to get some points against this Everton team. We at home seem to play a lot more on the front foot, and I can't see us sitting back and soaking up as much of the pressure as we did against Chelsea. At the end of the day, this is an Everton team that probably only play about 45% possession themselves. And I do think with a back line is honestly, I'll just say it. I think we're back line as aged as Everton's is because it is getting older now and they're not as athletic as the likes of Sunderland's. I think with our athletes and Enzo Lefebvre and Wilson Estor and Chris Rigg and Traore, an athlete for Traore is probably the wrong word to describe him. But in terms of like your Siddiquis, your Mukielis, your we are runners. We're runners. We're athletes. We're people who will spend the whole game making sure we outrun you. I think up against this Everton backline, which is a hell of a lot of experience, but a hell of a lot of age and maybe a little bit less mobility than the Sunderland team. I can see that being something Sunderland can really truly take advantage of, especially on a counter attack. Like I don't think Everton can keep up with Sunderland in the speed that we can break away. And when I look at their game against Spurs last week, they conceded practically the exact same goal against Spurs twice in a row. Twice from corners, they were able to just knock it on, get it put in. I think it was Van de Ven that was it. I can't remember fully. One of their centre halves got a double, and like so. I think this is the kind of game where Dan Ballard is getting his big head on that ball. Absolutely. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Sunderland score from a set piece this weekend as well. And in conclusion, I think Sunderland. In conclusion, I think that Everton will bring some quality to the Stadium Elite for sure that we can't underestimate. I'm talking now as a confident Sunderland fan that we'll be able to get the job done. Doesn't mean that I think it'll be confident that it'll be an easy day. I do think that Sunderland will spend a lot of the time doing what Sunderland do, soaking up some pressure and waiting for the right time to pass and waiting for the right time to pounce. But I do think Sunderland have enough to come away with a win here. I think if it was at the Hill Dickinson, I'd feel a little bit different. But given how excellent our home form has been this season, and Everton have only managed to get one away win so far this season, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Sunderland win. And that one does come off pretty confident. And it is, to be honest, like I am fairly confident they will be able to get the job done. As I said, I don't underestimate Everton, and I do like watching them. I don't think I've ever came across an Everton fan that was a prick by any means. Like they've always been excellent. I just think Sunderland will have enough defensively and defensively to get this one done. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Sunderland win, and you guys can let me know what you think about that one down in the comments below. But as I spoke about, guys, please feel free to like this video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Get involved in the conversation down below. This one has been a little bit less in detail than I normally like to go, but given the fact that we're doing a bit of a review and preview in the same video, then I hope you don't mind. Anyway, guys, as always, this one's brought to you by the southstandclothing.com. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to go and get yourself a t-shirt on the southstandclothing.com. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Catch you.